interested to have. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Bashir, is this the right time to start, or are we still giving it a minute or two?
Mr. Raed, shall we get started?
Yeah, sure, please. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
Bismillah.
much.
Thank you. Welcome everyone, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I am here representing Lecturio from London right now. What we're going to do is we're going to have a very brief PowerPoint presentation so I can give you an idea of what Lecturio is before we log into the platform and visualize all the functionality I'm talking about. If I speak too fast, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me, or you could have the questions at the end. I'll have breaks after every 5 or so minutes and ask questions. Also, I'd really appreciate if everyone is on mute as we present. So can everyone see my screen right now? Are you able to see my screen, Bashir?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's just start from the beginning. So, and this is something that definitely, if you don't have access right now, Bashir will work on it and you will have access to the platform. But basically, Lecturio is the next generation of health science. I'm sure all of you, we do understand that a lot has changed, not just in the past 2 years, but in the past decade. But what COVID has done, it has brought to surface one of the biggest problems we have, especially in a field such as medical and nursing education. The way that we are teaching is not adapting to, the global shortages we have right now in the world. We are using LMSs. We have switched to e-learning modules around the world, but these test prep tools, these content collections, they do not meet what learning science is showing us, the gap that learning science is showing us. They don't meet that potential to support precision medical education. If you just take COVID as one example, in those 2 years that, we were all going through, as new information came in, we were learning, about vaccines, transmissibility, about the virus, about the pathogenesis. And that was so much information, so much research, just in a very short span of time. And research actually tells us that medical knowledge is doubling almost every 2-3 months. So are our students able to, catch up with this new pandemic of information and misinformation? And the way we teach it needs to adapt. So that's where Lecturio comes in, where we use learning science principles to create this content and combine it with functionality, with learning science principles, so that whenever students are learning, their knowledge, it's sustained and it's retained for much longer. And how that is done, I will show you when we definitely log into the platform. So that's what we mean by gold standard precision health science education platform. So we have gone around the world, and now we have top educators from all these big Ivy League schools. So the headquarters of Lecturio are in Germany. And what happens is we fly in these instructors from top schools around the world that come and record this content on there. And in terms of volume, this high quality content, we have more than 10,000 video lectures, which encompasses the entire medical and nursing curriculum. And these are then synced to recall questions. These are quiz questions that try to garner how well the students are engaged with these videos when they watch them. And then they power into this AI system that bring up all this data, that generates all this data, which then we use to see how is learning being achieved. And then in addition to this, the videos and the recall questions, we have concept articles, we have clinical case questions, and then 3D anatomy models. All this is built into this very strong platform that combines and gives you all these different features, all these different functionality. And the way to look at it is two sides. So this gives a personalized smart tutor for students and a smart digital assistant for you, the faculty, who will then be, monitoring and using it to teach. So looking at the learning of your students. And we're not here to replace anything. So we do understand that there has been very many different setups around the world. I'm sure your university has its own LMS right now. And what Lecturio can do is we can have deep linking where we have single sign-on, and students don't have to remember multiple login IDs or passwords. And we use this software. So we use Power BI and RStudio to generate all this data which then you can use to see and adapt your teaching to the students. So let's just continue. So these are now just brief screenshots from the platform itself, which we will go to later. I just want to show you some very brief things. So first of all, when you look at the video, all the key concepts are given in a very concise format to ensure that, students stay engaged and there's a reduced cognitive load on the students. None of the videos are longer than 10 or 12 minutes, and then they're linked to recall questions. And this is what I'm sure you're very familiar with this sort of setup, but this is how the clinical questions look like. And then when students, are, even when they're watching the videos, that's how the 3D anatomy model comes up, and it's very interactable. We'll look at this when we look into the platform. Our long-term mastery. So this is those 30,000 quiz questions. They build into this deck called the spaced repetition. And what happens is that it's an adaptive algorithm that improves information recall. So it improves the active recall of students, and it encourages self-directed learning, having that spaced retrieval of information. And what faculty can do is they can use it to increase compliance within students. How is your performance like? Have you truly mastered this concept or not? As per their performance, students can also review and change the way, when they receive feedback. So one, they receive instantaneous feedback, and two, what do they do with this feedback? So they can take full control of their learning, and so can you as faculty, and we can look into this. So the rest of the presentation is just screenshots from the platform, and I'll share these slides with you so you can go over them. But let's come to the faculty side. So this is what the faculty dashboard would look like. And what happens is you have all this data generated from the platform, which you can use not only for, looking at your students and helping them, but also to generate research within your universities and your institutions to see where else can you build strategies to increase compliance with your students, to incentivize learning, to increase performance, to build confidence within your students. And then obviously, we do always understand that ethics is a very important thing. Not every student will use the platform ethically. So that's where we have this proctored assessment integration. What that means is we can have an exam safe mode, or we can have this external software that helps prevent cheating during exams and maintains the highest form of ethics as students do their assessments. There is also mobile app available. So we also come in iOS and Android. And what happens is this not only increases functionality for the students, but also they're able to use Lecturio, everything offline. So it doesn't matter how much bandwidth they have. If they are not in a place with network, they can download their video lectures, they can download their learning material and use it. And then whenever they do get connected with Wi-Fi or internet, they can synchronize it with their platform. We are globally being utilized. And what that boils down to is how many universities in the world trust Lecturio and what that looks in terms of statistics. So almost 100% satisfaction, where students are recommending it to their friends, exam scores are improving, stress levels are going down. And what that looks like in terms of, for example, scoring, one brief survey was done with UAssembly, and with brief, I mean about 5,000 or more students that participated. There is almost a 50% increase in UAssembly step 2 performance and about 30% in step 1. And this is just for one small study. So what I will do right now, as if you bear with me, I will switch to the platform so that everything that we have spoken about can be discussed live. Please just bear with me. Are you all able to see my screen again?
Not yet.
Okay, I hope now you can.
Yes, it started. Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is the login page, and right from login where you see, your name and school logo. So this will no longer be Lecturio. This will be your own academy. So here you'll have your logo, your name, and I'm sure for those of you who do have access or those who don't, when you get it, you will see how even the fonts and the colors can be changed according to your university. So when we log in, we have two views. And for today, I want to start with what the student sees, the student view, and then we will go to the faculty view. So right on my screen, the first thing are the widgets. So this is basically a summary of everything, all the functionality on the platform that I have already engaged with, and I can see, what my stats are looking like. But let's start from this panel through which we can also engage these same functionalities. So as I mentioned, the biggest, our content, the bulk of it is in terms of videos. And what that looks like is, let's go to our video library. We can select curricula. So for example, let's say we are nursing, we'd then have our nursing curricula for our students, but let's start with MBBS, MBCHB, and let's start with anatomy. So even before students, start using the videos, they can see how much load they have. They can assign it to themselves. They can see the description and see who is it that's teaching them. And obviously, if you have your own videos that are uploaded, you're able to add all this as well. So for example, if Mr. Bashir has, a video about, let's say, ethics or about anything related in his field, he can have his video. We can see this in the course creator. And then when we come in here, let's now look at something, for example, head and neck anatomy. Let's go to the thyroid gland. I really like it, so I always go to the thyroid gland. Let's just mute it for 1 second as the thing. So as the instructor is playing, you can see there is right before students even engage with the material, we have learning objectives on here. And learning objectives help students understand, concept alignment and understand what is it that they need to learn. How will they know learning has been achieved? And as the video progresses, students can get the transcript and follow through. So we do understand sometimes maybe English is not a first language, or just generally some students do like taking notes, or they can even search. Let's say I want to hear where the parathyroid comes in, and I can just click there, and then the video will skip to that part as I follow with my transcript. I can have English subtitles or auto translation subtitles in over 25 languages. I can take notes. So for example, 9 months ago at position 136, I found something interesting while they were talking about laryngeal nerves. And I can write that here again, and this will then all be saved in my summary notes. So I don't need to run around. Everything is really well built for me with the platform. And then as let's say I'm playing this video, I'm learning, I get a phone call, there's a patient, or my professor calls me, or just something comes up and I know I cannot finish this video. What I can then do is then just learn the same material via my concept page. So this is just a very distilled way to look at the same information. Just 1 second, I'm trying to scroll down. So what we have on video there, we do understand students also have different learning styles. Not everyone probably wants to watch that video. So they can come to their concept page and have that same information in a very clinical manner. It's oriented clinically, where we're talking about, the anatomy, the neurovasculature, and then the clinical relevance of it. And as we go on, with different topics, we'd have the differentials, the diagnosis, the treatment. And you can see the references are also quite updated. I can mark where I've learned this page or not, look at the diagrams, and then do a quiz to see if I've actually learned it. But going back to our video that we were watching, please bear with me for a second. So we were still on the video. Let's see what happens when the video ends. So I had mentioned to you something called spaced repetition, whereby we have about 30,000 quiz questions. Now, these quiz questions are separate from our clinical case questions. So every time a student engages with any of the videos, with any of the material, we have about 3 to 5 questions that pop up that try to examine how was the student's engagement and has learning been achieved. So these are in sync with our learning objectives. So for example, let's see, I am guessing right now. So I guessed it. Now, two factors go in here. My confidence and how many times have I answered that question. So I answered it with a semi-confidence. I was not 100% confidence. So there is an algorithm that adapts to every learner, and it's telling me I have learned it for 14 days. So now, had I answered this question incorrectly, with very low confidence, I would have to redo it at a shorter time. Had I answered it with 100% confidence and correct, it will now come back to me after a longer time. This is what we talk about spaced retrieval. And this is then what we talk about when we talk about long-term mastery of concepts. We're no longer cramming. The platform actually reminds the user that you're more likely to forget it after 14 days. So the same question will come back to me after 14 days. Let's see. I think, so for example, now I answered this question, but I answered it correctly with 100% confidence, and the time is longer. I have learned it for 3 months, after which it will come back to me. So let's close that for a second. And then the other thing is we have this another pop-up, the summary note. So learning science tells us that students remember for longer and remember better when they regurgitate information in their own words and when they use active recall. So even if they have just 10 minutes of video, they are able to create a summary. What did I truly learn in those 10 minutes? And then this will build a different deck for them. So let's go back to our panel here. So from the videos that I just showed you, the space repetition, let's go there for a minute. So I did those quiz questions, let's see, for MBBS, and I can see I'm not doing that well because I have so many overdue, but I can see that from all these, 80 that I've done, I have truly mastered one concept. So I did this one question more than 5 times with 100% confidence, and I'm sure that now I'll remember it for a very long time, inshallah. I can choose a topic before my exam. I can choose, a particular subject. If I only have a little bit of time, I can do these quizzes to, see where it is that I'm not doing well and I want to work and remember some concepts for a lot longer. The same way, the space repetition, the concept pages that we got from the video, students can also just come here and have all those pages. So for example, let's see what cardiovascular system looks like. So let's go to arrhythmias. Let's just pick tachyarrhythmias. So as I mentioned, clinically oriented students can look at right from the basic sciences to the clinical bit of it, because obviously whether student is in first year or third year, they eventually do go to practicing clinically and learning this in that manner, whereby we look at management, relevance, and then also look at references to see how else can I, engage my learning. Let's go back for a second. So we looked at the videos and the concept pages, but I also mentioned to you that in addition to all this, we also have clinical case questions. So these are different from the quiz questions that we have on there. So let's look at, for example, as a student, I know I have a formative assessment or a final exam coming and I want to practice for it. So I can use this as self-directed learning, or this very feature is definitely available to our faculty as well, where you can assign this exam to your students. And this is what the exam mode looks like. So for example, I can, as a student, if I'm still practicing, I can set a timer on there, decide whether I want to have tutor mode or not, decide my difficulty. And I know, what, next week I have an internal medicine exam, and I know I'm not doing really well in cardiovascular. So what I will do is I'll pick that I want to do about 5 questions. Let me start that right now. So this is what the exam browser looks like. And, when we always teach our students, we tell them, always highlight what you think is important, read the question carefully. So students don't need to, go look for pen and paper and write down. That's the whole point of digitizing the way we teach, to make their lives easier and ours as well. So as I read the question, I can also, cross out some of the answers that I think are not, definitely correct. I can pick what I think is correct. And, I see there are some values here given to me. Let's say I do need to use a calculator or just confirm some normal ranges. And obviously, if this is a final exam, these features can be hidden as well. Is there a question for me? Bashir, has there been a question?
I'm not sure. Is there anyone who has any access, any inquiries or any question for the curricula? I think someone, I forgot the mic. And
Okay, I
that's
understand.
fine. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So as I'm doing the question as well, let's say I find an unfamiliar term. I don't know what bibacillar crackles are, so I can write that down and then ask my professor later of what did that mean, or something. So when I answer the question, now this is an exam question, I have got it wrong. I'm seeing how my peers have been answering it. I can see what the correct answer was, but also why the other options were possibly given there. And then look at my learning. So the related video for that, I don't have to, go back and my browser and my exam. I can just learn the points and then continue to my next question. So let's say I have now learned that. I'm going to go to my next question, repeat the process, answer the question. And for example, now I have got it correct. So when I end, I can see that I have done a 50-50 on this test. So for example, I can look at my accuracy. I can see how my peers have been doing for similar set of questions. I can review my explanations. And what we mean by, adaptive learning, adaptive teaching is students can then create their own playlists. So for example, I can choose, had I done more topics, there would be more options, but I can, even within internal medicine, I can start a review to redo or to relearn all the concepts that I do not know, so that I did not know, which is why I did not perform so well. So for example, let's come here. And now what has happened is a playlist has been created for me. And when I do that question again, I will be able to perform better because now I have engaged with that material right from a click of a button. So let's go back for a second. And then how does this all build down for the students? I had mentioned that this is, a smart personal tutor for the students. So let's go to our study planner. When students are engaging with any of the material and when they have assignments, it all gets added to their study planner. For example, even if you as faculty assign students to them or students assign it for themselves for self-directed learning, there is a very well built traffic light system. So green, I'm in progress, orange, not to track, and red, I may have already missed the deadline. I can see which are the overdue ones. So thank God, alhamdulillah, I don't have any overdue ones. I can see which ones are due first or not, and reorient my planner that way. But research tells us that one of the biggest challenges that medical and nursing students face, or just our healthcare students face, is time management and ability to not get overwhelmed with learning all these different modules in a very short time, but at a very high intensity. So what happens is that I can see that if I do my assignments due date by due date, I might do 3 minutes today, but right before an assignment, I would have to probably spend 9 hours just trying to cover all my material. And this, this is what builds anxiety spikes in students. But Lecturio is also giving me a very balanced approach that if I just spend 3 hours every single day, I will finish all my assignments. And based on this approach, what is it that I need to do today? So my bare minimum task, my recommended tasks are given to me here. And as long as I click on it, it will take me to, that part of my video library where I can go ahead and finish my tasks that are due today. Going back to our planner. So we have looked at that. And then the other thing is students can also have learning paths built for them. So for example, instead of going to the video, then going to the question, then finding the deck, you as faculty can build this in terms of, learning paths for them. For example, I have one that I've built for myself for anatomy. We have pre-made ones for all the other students. For example, let's look at pharmacology. And this is what the learning path looks like. So a learning path basically pulls in all the information that's on there in a systematic way. So if I want to, for example, master introduction to pharmacology, now I have built myself a path here. And for this, when I just assign it to myself or start it, it will build this up. It will progress with me so that I can master just the introduction. So I would be doing these many Q-Bank questions, these many videos, these many quiz questions, finish that, move on to the next block, and you will be able to track this performance with me, and I will be able to do it as well. So there are two ways. I can track it from here, come look at my performance, or as a general, how has my performance been with the platform? All that data that is being generated, what can I do with it as a student? So for example, I am looking at just today or for the past month, I can look at it in terms of how well am I doing? So for example, especially in clinical learning, I know that I'm not doing that well. Let's look at MBBS and let's see where is it that I am struggling right now. So let's look at organ systems. So I have not been doing anything in epidemiology and biostatistics. I can see that, in endocrine system, that's where I'm doing well, but I am definitely not doing well in cardiovascular system. And then as I click where I'm not doing well, I can start an adaptive review. And again, a playlist will be generated for this purpose. We do have patient notes for our clinical year students as well. So when students, go on to their clinical years or their clerkships, and now they're trying to, interact with patients, even that can be added onto the platform, and you can help them build, good history taking, good physical examination skills. So for example, I do have one encounter here, but this is what it looks like briefly. Let's say I'm at my clerkship, I'm at the pediatric ward, I have a chronic visit, it's in the ER, it's probably in building A, or, behind anatomy ward or whatever it is, based on your hospital setting. I know it's a young child, male, race. So for example, if I've written here, it's an African American, or sorry, as a black child presenting with shortness of breath. And, you know, there's things that I can write on here, which will then build down to focusing on what the possible differentials could be, and then coming up with a final diagnosis, which would be available to you as well. So if you do see that there's difficulty in me coming up with a final diagnosis, you can see where is it that I'm missing a step as faculty. I know I have spent a lot of time on the student side. I want to now switch and show you what you as faculty are able to do with the platform. But at this point, does anyone have any questions for me for what the students see? Okay, I am guessing no, so I will continue to the admin. So I had mentioned to you that we have two, we look at two views. So we looked at what the smart tutor looks like for students. Let's go and look at what the smart digital assistant looks like for faculty. So when you as faculty log into the platform, the first thing you see is this really powerful dashboard that summarizes all the activities. So now you have a similar functionality. You have all your widgets looking at the activity that's going on to the platform. Every time a student engages with any part of the platform, data is generated. And what you do with that data, that then affects, you know, the learning, the teaching environment, and it helps you adapt your teaching to meet your students' needs and also to enhance their performance. So I can write from here, I can see my usage of my platform, how are students engaging with it, what is their, how correct are they, or what their performance is like, which are the months, for example, I know that as the year is ending, sometimes performance drops. I can look into that and see where is it that performance is dropping, where is it that students are finding difficulty. So for example, I can see that anatomy, yes, students are working on it, but no student has even, you know, touched embryology right now. And then I can look at individual learners. So we do have risk scores, whether I have 5 students or 5,000 students on the platform, I can see which of my students are at high risk. They have a lot of assignments overdue, they have low confidence, and even their accuracy is quite poor. So what I can do is I can come to my statistics bar, go to my individual learner view, and look for that student that I know now needs more help as faculty from the faculty side. So right here, I have seen my student Stefan. I can have a look at his study planner. He has missed his, so I have given him 2 assignments. He's definitely missed one.
موجودة الآن خرجت الآن. شوفي لو راحت عند القسم يمكن.
I think
Mr. Sultan, I think you open your mic.
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. Okay. So as I was saying, that you can then look at how each of your students is doing. So I know that Stefan, one of my students, was having a very poor risk score. His confidence is not that great. And I can see that very, you know, just from the get-go, he has already missed an assignment. What is it, his library statistic like? Why is he, you know, missing my assignment? So let's look at his MBCHP. I can see that, you know, he is watching the videos, but when he watches them, he's not always answering all the questions. And even when he answers them, he gets most of them wrong. But where is it that he's struggling? Which subject or which organ system is it that he's struggling in? So I can now see. Let's just do this. Just 1 second. Bashir, if I can make you co-host, that would, you could then just mute anyone who, you know, probably has a call. Are you co-host right now?
Let's try. I will try to mute. 1 second. No, I can't. I can't mute anyone from my side.
Okay, let's see. I am trying to find your icon right now. What is the name that you have used? Sorry, I can't find you in my screen.
It's Omar.
Omar, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, make co-host. Okay, now you should be able to mute and control, have a some control. Perfect. Okay, let's go
Yeah,
back.
thank you.
Share. Okay, back to looking at our users and individual statistics. So for example, individual learner, I can now go dig deeper. So now this is all that information. I can go right down to even the questions that my student is struggling with. So for example, right now here, I can see that Stefan is completely struggling at aging and embryology. And within embryology, first of all, he's barely watched anything. He's not really interacted with the material. He's not done the question. So, you know, I can keep digging deeper to all the statistics on the students. And I can look at it in terms of groups as well, you know, which, for example, let's say I have multiple groups created here. Sorry, for now, for this demo, I only have two, but let's say I have class A, class B, class C within first year, and then I can see some students are doing better than the others. What is it that's working? What is it that's not working? And this can really help with you having, you know, even research within your institutions to look at which students are there that generally perform better, use the platform better, and how is it that we can help them. Let us go to our library as well. Okay, so for instead of looking at it from the user view or from the individual learner view, we can also have this this data in terms of library usage. So for all that content we have on there, in addition to Lecturio content, even your content, what is the usage been like? Where, and based on that, what is the performance? How is the performance of the student? So for example, let's go to cardiovascular system. We can look at the anatomy, the physiology, the pathology, pharmacology, the pathophysiology. So let's go to the physiology, for example. So for all my users, I can see that they are watching, but their performance is quite poor. And you know, the more usage is on there, the more time goes on, the more data I have to work with. I can look at it in terms of the QBank usage as well. And then, you know, I had mentioned to you there's 7,000 clinical case questions on there. For all those questions, you can look at not only the data in terms of topics and systems, but also each and every question. Bashir, I think now that you're host, when you're touching the thing, is that iPad you? I think
don't think so.
it's okay. They're changing it. There's some changes on my screen, but anyway, that's okay.
Yeah.
Now let's look at assignments. So you as faculty can assign assignments to your students. You can give them tasks to complete. And as we had looked at the study planner, you can here see what is the workload on your students. So I have seen that, you know, for all the assignments that I have right now, they are for at least for November right now. I don't have much data, but we can go back and look at previous data as well of what has been going on with my students. And based on that, I can create an assignment. And it's all just, you know, a click of a button. So for example, I have options here. I can either choose to create an offline task, or let's say I want to go to my video library and I know, let's say I'm using flipped classroom approach where tomorrow I have a biochemistry session with my students, but I usually know that, you know, when students come, they really struggle with amino acids and metabolism. So I want them to come when they've already studied at least a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll come here, I'll click assign, I'll choose a date. So I want to make sure students learn before Friday. And this is telling me that, you know what, I'm adding about 1 hour, 36 minutes or about 1.36 hours to my students' workload. Let's say I needed them to complete it by tomorrow. It's flagging red and telling me that, you know what, I'm doubling their workload and I might cause, you know, anxiety in my students because I'm giving them more than they can do. So I will change my deadline. I'll be a good professor. I can then choose. So I can either just choose my entire group of students or one particular. So for example, an entire group, or I know Stefan usually struggles the most. So I want Stefan to come prepared. And what will happen is that just at the click of a button, sorry, there, just at the click of a button, he will receive a notification that, you know, Dr. Ikra has given him an assignment, and also it will be added to his study planner just by clicking save there. Let's go back. Oh, I think we may have hit a bug. Let's log out again and try one more time. There, let's go back to admin. Apologies for that. So we were looking at assignments. We've looked at the QBank. And then the final thing I want to go to is going back to our library, course creator access. So we are quite excited about all this, you know, top level content we have that has been made by the best educators around the world. But we do understand you are also among the best educators, and you might want to add your own content for your students to learn. You may have your own recorded lecture. So as you can see, I have already created something for my own students that I tutor, but it's very easy. Click of a button, I can create a course, I can write a title. So for example, this time I can have anatomy with Dr. Ikra. All I have to do is I can pick my own picture there. I can write a brief description of we are doing head and neck. And when I click save, the same way that we had, you know, videos, which then was synced to these adaptive review questions with these space retrieval questions, I can do that. So I can add a lesson. Let's say this is basic, save, and I can add a video file. I can then add questions. So what the quiz questions would look like is, for example, this would be question 1, and then there is 1. I'm having probably 2 correct answers and I'm having 2 wrong answers. So I would then have that. And when I click save, the same algorithm would follow, whereby, you know, the students would come, look at my lesson details, watch my video, answer the question, and probably even if I wish, I could add learning materials, I could add a PowerPoint, or I could add a PDF, and then the students would, you know, be able to use the same functionality of the platform with my own content. Let's just see if we have missed anything. So I do want to take a minute. I don't want to overwhelm you. There's a lot of functionality on there. There's a lot of smart features, and we are always available to help you as you use this platform. I did miss a very small thing, so I want to go back to just one thing in the students video section. When students are watching these videos, they can engage with them in terms of 3D as well. So let's look at our 3D model. When our students, okay, students can interact in 3D as well. I hope it's loaded. My internet is now a little slower than usual. Can everyone see my screen and body interact?
Yes.
Yeah, we can
Yes.
see.
So as it's playing, you know, I can have it on full screen. I can have it smaller. I can build structures. So I can build my entire anatomy tree. I can choose to, you know, have the cardiovascular system as well, or just the nervous system. Whatever it is that I'm learning with my professor, I can interact here in 3D, annotate my diagram, make notes, and then obviously have my notes on here as well. So on that note, I want to stop sharing my screen for a bit and hopefully answer any questions that you may have. I will stop recording at this point as well. Let's see.